Guess it's time to start. Someone give me a thumbs up when I'm ready to start. I see, is that right from Skeptic Haven? Okay, I think we're ready to start now. So I will just start. So guys, this is actually Skeptic Haven, but it's not Skeptic Haven moderating. It's African Debates. We are collaborating with Skeptic Haven for a discussion today, and the discussion is on, as you've seen on the topic, whether naturalism is sufficient to give a solution to the problem of racism that we have in the world, or whether we would require having African, and so probably be there'll be more of a noble approach. There's a biological aspect we want to look at, and also a spiritual aspect, but we might find ourselves having to actually maybe discuss a little bit of all in this. So it's going to be more of a discussion, and I guess maybe even before we start, our hope is that with all the racism in the world, that this discussion will be able to bring in more light, shed more light instead of heat, so that we don't see all the crazy stuff we see in the world. In fact, I was just discussing with the debaters how an individual who called another individual an ape. Here, there was someone in the US who got shot because someone did not believe in what they believed in. And so what I'm hoping is that such discussions will actually ensure that we are talking more than we are fighting. To start presenting the naturalism side is White Jesus out of Africa, who is from the Atheist Republic, South Africa. And I guess he'll talk more about his channel and what he does. And also the one who will be representing Christian side will be Lwandiso Dlokweni from Bizrot for Africa, and he will also tell us more about his ministry and what he does. And so there'll be no one representing the African traditional religious side, but it is anticipated that Jesus out of Africa and Lwandiso will have something to say about African traditional religion in light of the topic of racism. And so without further ado, we will start with White Jesus out of Africa with his opening statement. And the opening statement will be 7 minutes. So the time he starts speaking, I will start the timer.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Skeptic Haven. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Lwandiso, for having this debate. Yeah, like Charles said in the introduction, I'm here to represent the naturalist view. And look, usually in these debates, people expect the naturalist to be this cold, cynical, robot-like person, a calculator in a suit, while the believer or the spiritualists get to take the moral high ground, cloaked in the warm glow of sacred mysteries. But I'm here to flip that script. I'm here to tell you that equality isn't some fragile, ghostly secret that we just have to take on faith. It is not a gift from a silent sky. It is a stubborn, undeniable biological reality. Honestly, the spiritual position is the one that is truly fragile. If your sense of human value depends on specific interpretations of a specific book, what happens when somebody else reads that book differently? We've seen that happen. But gravity doesn't care if you believe in it or not, and neither does the biological monolith of the human species. Similarity is a biological reality. Race is a cultural construct. Now, before we go any further, I want to offer a prophecy, because I can prophesy. I don't need a burning bush for this just a basic understanding of predictable rhetoric. In a few minutes, my opponent will stand up to you and tell you that without a creator, life is a meaningless accident. They will likely use the phrase intrinsic value at least 5 times, as if saying it often enough makes it a magical force field. They will warn you that if we are just bags of chemicals, then there is no reason to treat one another kindly. They will try to sell you the image of God as if it's the only thing standing between us and total nihilism. It is a classic debate move. Create a terrifying ghost story about a world without their specific God, and then offer their faith as the only flashlight. It's a beautiful metaphor, and it worked as a moral placeholder for a very long time. But we have outgrown the placeholder. We don't need a skyhook for our morality when we are standing on the solid ground of evolutionary history. Let us now look at the data. Genetically, any 2 people on this stage or in this country are 99.9% identical. That tiny 0.01% difference is where we find the software tweaks, melanin, hair texture, the shape of a nose. That is the shallow pool where racists are trying to swim. But the 99.9%, that is the ocean. That is the prefrontal cortex that let us reason, the limbic system that lets us love, and those mirror neurons that give us empathy. When a person gets hit, their nervous system reacts with the exact same surge of pain. It doesn't matter what color their skin is. If a child is malnourished, their brain development takes a hit in the same measurable ways, whether they are in Cape Town or in Lusaka. It doesn't matter. We don't need a divine foundation to tell us that people are equal any more than we need a decree from a pulpit to prove that fire burns. We can literally see it in our anatomy. We measure it in our genomes. To be racist isn't just immoral, it is factually illiterate. It is a bad map of how the world actually works. We are debating this in South Africa. Both Lwandiso and myself are from South Africa. This isn't an academic exercise here. It is our history. For decades, apartheid wasn't just a political choice. It was sold as a spiritual truth. It was preached from the pulpit. People used the curse of Ham to justify holding others down. They taught us that God wanted nations separate as a divine law. This is the danger of the spiritual foundation. It is a foundation of shifting sand. It is at the mercy of whoever has the loudest microphone in the church or the most revelation in their pocket. If your truth is unfalsifiable, it can be twisted to justify just about anything. You can't argue with somebody who says, well, God told me we're different. But you can argue with somebody about biology. You can pull out a DNA sequencer. You can show that the blood in our veins and the neurons in our heads are identical. Naturalism is the check and balance we need against religious whims. It says, I don't care what your book says. The reality of the human body says that we are one. My opponent will likely say that nature is red in tooth and claw and cannot provide a moral baseline. They are wrong. We are a social species. Our sense of fairness isn't a whisper from a ghost on high. It is a survival strategy that has been hard-coded into our DNA over millions of years. Evolutionary reciprocity taught us that groups that protected every member survived and groups that fractured by cruelty collapsed. Cooperation isn't a divine miracle, it is a biological necessity. At the end of the day, a divine foundation for equality is a luxury that we can no longer afford. It is too easy to break, But the biological fact of equality, that is granite. I do not believe in invisible people. I don't need to believe in invisible ghosts and demons and whatever to protect the people that I see. I don't need a scroll from 3,000 years ago to tell me my neighbor deserves respect. I just have to look at them. I see a creature that feels pain like I do, who's afraid of death like I am, and who possesses the same magnificent shared brain architecture. By grounding equality in nature, we make it unshakable. We move it from faith to fact. Racism is a lie about biology, and the only cure for a lie is the truth, the measurable biological truth that we are fundamentally the same. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, thanks a lot. Jesus out of Africa. And we've just had the naturalist perspective on the topic of racism. Will give us his opening statement on the topic.
Thank you so much, Ondalo, and thank you so much to Dean as well for being willing to have this discussion. I think it's a discussion that a lot of people don't want to have. I think both the racism debate and equality debate is often shied away from. And so I think it's great that we're having this discussion. So my name is Naturalism, as I've been introduced, and I am involved in apologetics with Violates for Africa. This is where I answer questions related to Christianity and also African traditional religion. I try to give answers that people are asking from a biblical perspective. So the question that we're asking today is not whether or not racism is wrong. I think both the naturalist and the Christian would agree that it is wrong. We're also not here to debate whether or not Christians can be racist or whether or not atheists can be racist or who is more moral. I think consistent from a biblical perspective, we agree that all people have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, whether you're black or you are white. And so the Bible already accounts for the fallenness of humanity. However, when we are looking at biology and we're looking at the natural worldview, biology can describe DNA, it can describe evolution, genetics, similarities, which have been already shared by Dean. But evolution cannot explain why certain behaviors might be right or may be wrong. It's quite a massive jump to say that we are similar, and then from there make the jump to say, therefore, we are equal. Because we can even say that humans are mammals, the same way that whales are mammals. But being part of the same, I guess, membership group, if you will, doesn't necessarily jump to making the claim that we're equal. I think that is more ideological and philosophical. But if morality is based on evolution, then it is adaptive. It could be an adaptive strategy. So if tribal maybe preferences and hierarchies or dominances were adaptive, for an example, people could maybe be a majority group in a particular country and see that we need to actually kill the minorities in order to survive or to adapt. It will still point towards the questions of saying, how can we then say we're equal? Evolution would not be able to label those things as evil. And so it's important that we understand that if morality and value is something that is also socially constructed, then racism can't necessarily be wrong, because what if a certain society decides to say, well, we're going to say these people, especially if you come back to the history of South Africa, for an example, it was something that was legal and people agreed upon it. And they said some people are greater and some people are inferior. And so to say that something is agreed upon is not going to ground morality. If human value is grounded in our capacity, our rationality, our autonomy and intelligence, then dignity also comes in degrees. We would even ask the question to say, what about people who have cognitive challenges, maybe people who have dementia, and so on? Do we see them as equal to us if it is grounded on our capacity to be rational? And so from even atheistic perspectives, there are some atheists who've been very honest about this discussion. For example, Nietzsche famously declared that if God is dead, then objective moral values die with him. In other words, without God, there are no values to discover. It's only values that we create by human beings. And maybe someone is going to say, Nietzsche is not the representative of atheism. But I would say that at least Nietzsche was willing to think deep and hard about these questions. And so when we come from an African spirituality perspective, African spirituality believes there is a God, but very often is ethnically based. So if it's a God of a particular tribe, it's a God of the Xhosa, the God of the Zulu, or even the God of the Afrikaans or the English. But it never sees God in a sense that he's God who created all people. But human value is seen in the philosophy of Ubuntu. Ubuntu says, I am because we are. And for me, that is much better than atheism, but it doesn't necessarily give us a strong grounding for morality because it can be interpreted as a godless philosophy. Because if it's just simply, I am because you are, it doesn't necessarily include God in there. It is, I find my being from you. It's almost like a communal form of atheism. But from a Christian perspective, we believe that we are made in the image of God, according to Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27. So the Creator endows value to each and every human being, creates us in his image. Whether you're black or white, if you are created in the image of God, you are given that value. And it's something that is not shifting because it's something that's given to us by the Creator. And even when the Creator creates, he says it is very good. And so for another human being to look at another human being and say, you're black, you're ugly, you're a monkey, I mean, those things are simply debunked by the fact that the Creator looked at this thing that he created and he said it was good. Even if you come to the New Testament, we see that the grounding of the teachings of Jesus, talking about loving your neighbor, summarizing the law. Christ himself comes to the world. He doesn't become a donkey. He doesn't go to Mars. He takes on the human nature, showing that it is valuable to him and that he affirms its dignity. He's also willing to die for the human being. That's how far God is willing to add value to the human being. Paul declares in Acts chapter 17, verse 26, that God made from one man every nation of mankind. So this means that even similar maybe to the idea of a common ancestor, that Christianity affirms this, that we all come from the same person, and so therefore we cannot say one would be greater than the other. And so this is the position that I want to be defending today. Thank you.
Pray for the connection, my friend.
Right.
Pray for the connection.
Thanks a lot for. Sorry, that was my timer. And so right now we want to get into the cross-examination period, and so this will be, and we'll start with Luandiso. Luandiso. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, is the connection that bad actually? All right. Hopefully it will get better.
Yeah.
We're talking about racism and whether Christianity, African traditional religion, a meaningful solution. And so we'll have 7 minutes where we start with Luandiso asking questions of Africa. So whenever Luandiso starts asking, we are hoping you'll get in as many questions and answers as possible in 7 minutes.
All right.
So whenever Luandiso starts asking, I start the timer.
All right. I hope you can hear me, Dean.
You are loud and clear. I hear you.
Okay, excellent. All right. So would you say that racism is something that is objectively wrong? In other words, it's wrong for all people in all places in society?
I would, and as I stated in my opening, it is. I take that position because it is a fact of biology.
Okay, you take it as a fact of biology, but what about biology makes every single human being to be equal?
The fact that we are 99.9% exactly the same in our DNA and in our anatomy, that is objective.
All right. So would you agree with me that there have been people who have looked at biology, who have looked at science and come out with completely different conclusions to the conclusions that you've made?
Well, would you take the same position? I would take exactly the same position that you would take with the Mormons or the Catholics. We're looking at the same data, but they're getting it so wrong, you know. So I would encourage them to look at the data, the cold hard data that we can both look at objectively without interpretation, because your question is framed in the sense that you're not asking me about objectivity, you are asking me about someone's interpretation of objectivity.
Sure. But I just wanted to find out, firstly, from the grounding perspective, because you mentioned apartheid and you mentioned the curse of Ham. Have you read where the curse of Ham comes from? And I'm trying to just show you that there's been a bit of inconsistency. First,
my friend,
to your side. Can I finish the question? Let me finish the question.
Of course. Sorry, I thought you were done.
Yeah. So if it is unfair for me to say people can interpret something differently, you would agree with me that people can also interpret scientific data in a different way. So again, coming to the curse of Ham, you made it as if, we should see that as something that represents a Christian position. So I'm asking you, can we also say things like the curse of Ham, apartheid that was preached from the pulpit, that it can be just a misrepresentation of the curse of Ham? And that's why I asked you if you've actually read up on the curse of Ham.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah, I was a Christian. I was a Christian for 35 years of my life, and a devout one. So I'm quite familiar with the theology and the reasons behind it. But again, you
so
are.
Do you believe that there's a biblical basis of using the curse of Ham to say that black people are cursed?
You should ask the Bible on that. You should.
Well, I'm asking you. I'm asking you based on your knowledge of the curse of Ham.
I don't believe the Bible.
Dean, based on your knowledge of the curse of Ham, would you say that it was justified for people during apartheid to use that as a biblical basis, based on what you know?
Well, I mean, if someone believed that Christianity was true, then they could most definitely use the biblical text and support it, as the Dutch Reformed Church did for over 40 years.
I'm not asking you about the Dutch Reformed Church. I'm asking you now about the actual biblical principle, because this will end our discussion. If you can just say this thing is actually supported from the Bible based on your knowledge. And the reason why I'm asking you this is because when I asked you
also have to be fair. You have to be fair in a sense that you are asking somebody to have a discussion on the ins and outs of biblical texts. I don't care what the Bible says.
But if you're going to critique the Bible.
Yes, because there's something wrong with it. I'm very.
Yeah, but you can't critique it based on ignorance.
I need a degree. I need a degree in theology to be able to say the Bible is a load of horseshit.
Dean, you said to me that you were a Christian for 30 years. Now I'm asking you,
38
based
years.
on what you know, Dean, based on what you know about the curse of Ham,
38
is
years.
this something that is valid that we could use in justifying apartheid based on the curse of Ham?
I don't think
I'm just
so.
trying to.
I don't think
Sorry?
so, but I was told that.
Okay,
from
thank you.
from the pulpit.
Thank you. No, it's fine. Then if you don't think so, let me move on. Let me move on to another question then.
I was
So
told
then
this
if
from
it
the
is, if
pulpit.
you don't think so, then it's
From
fine. I
the
mean, why
pulpit.
continue?
A man in a suit and tie sat there every Sunday, and he told us that this is why there is a separation between the peoples. It's because of this
Sure.
biblical mandate, the curse of Ham.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree that people have done that. And very interesting in apartheid, and I don't want to be making a monologue, but I was getting somewhere with this thing.
Yeah.
Why I was asking
Sorry,
you is that
I'm
very
derailing.
often,
Go ahead.
yeah. The reason why I was pointing that out is that I think you agree with me that there's actually no biblical basis for this. Very similarly to someone who would
You
maybe
should
come
ask
up.
the Midianites. You should ask the Midianites if they.
Well, we're not talking about the Midianites. I think you'll have an opportunity to ask about them, but let's not try and divert from what I'm saying. So you agreed with me that there's no biblical basis, but you used it in your opening statement. But anyway, coming back again,
I will be sure to remind you of all the biblical. I have a list of.
You can do that in your time. You can do that in your time. Don't use my time.
I have a list.
You will have your time, Dean.
I hope you came prepared.
Dean, but is it not my time to ask?
Go ahead.
Yes. So then, if people can misuse the Bible, I think you will agree with me that they can also misuse biology. Like social Darwinianism, where people actually came up with the theory that some races were able to evolve faster than some races. And so therefore, these races were much better evolved, and came to conclusions that Caucasians were much superior as a race than other people. So you would agree with me that if people can do that with Christianity, it can also be done when it comes to biology, especially considering the fact that in your opening statement, you said it's not about something that is a shifting sand. It's okay, we'll concede the time.
If you don't mind, I will be the first. I will be the first one to admit, yes, people are shit. People are shit. If you add religion into it, they become wet shit.
All right. Actually, maybe because the
Charles, I think you should just turn off your video feed because your audio is coming through very. We hear like every second word. You're buffering very badly. So maybe just close your video feed so that we can get more bandwidth out and we can hear you.
All right. Now we've just finished the first section of the cross-examination. Now we get to White Jesus out of Africa asking questions to Lwandiso for 7 minutes. And then after that, we'll now get into the...
Nice. Are you ready for me, Papa?
Yes, come on, let's go.
The audio?
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Let's continue with cross-examining Lwandiso. I hope we'll start time.
Okay, so I want to know about this spiritual truth of equality in Christianity. Why has it changed so much over the past 3,000 years? Or is it just that our understanding of biology and evolution and social cooperation has evolved? Why has Christianity all of a sudden they are fine with, for example, the rights of women? That's a very new thing. Why all of a sudden is Christianity okay and not okay with slavery? Why is this spiritual truth spiritual truth is supposed to be like, why is it changing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think obviously this is a problem for Christians as much as it's also a problem in the naturalistic perspective, as I've shown you that even on your side, people have changed. And even before modern genetics, right? Some people came up with a theory that black people were closer to apes. And even today, black people, when they're playing soccer, they're being thrown with bananas, and that doesn't really go away. But modern genetics, as you've stated, has debunked that and shown that we're actually very similar to each other. So the way that people perceive something and what that thing is in its original essence, and I'm hoping this debate is going to be about principle and not about distortion. In other words, the Bible can say one thing and people can maybe understand the Bible to mean another thing. And that's why I think our debate should always stay within the biblical principles, the Christian worldview, but not how people have understood it. When it comes to women, I mean, from Genesis chapter 1, like I've already said, the principle is in the text, right? He made them male and female. The two become one. How can two become one unless they are equal, right? So we can always come back to the text.
Short answers, please, Lwandiso.
Sorry, it's quite
500.
broad.
I know, but I've
It's
got
quite big.
500
It's quite a
questions.
big topic.
I see you like to preach. You like to preach.
No. It's a big topic. It's a big topic.
I know. I just, right. So, yeah, trust me, you are going to hate atheist Bible study. Trust me, you don't want to do that. Avoid it. Avoid it because it's going to hurt. Trust me. Next question, right? This image of God thing, is it actually found in our DNA, or is it just some invisible quality that we need to take on faith, that we are made in the image of God? Because I'm not invisible.
Yeah, I like that. So the image of God is quite powerful because when we're talking about God himself, he's got things that he has communicated to us, and there are things that he hasn't communicated to us. And I don't mean to preach, but the Bible is complex. And so God has communicated some attributes with us that belong to him. Number one, God is spiritual. We're also spiritual beings. God is love. And so we are also have the capacity to love. We have the capacity to be social, right? So God is a Trinity. And so that's where we get our social capacity. God can exist in three distinct persons, Father, Son, Spirit, where the Father is the one who sends the Son, where the Spirit and the Father sends the Son, but these people can be equal, right? So we are able to get all these attributes of
you ran out the clock. I didn't even get two questions.
I didn't mean to. I'm going to try my best not to.
I'm looking for an answer, and I'm getting a sermon every time.
Sorry. I don't mean to do that. I don't. It's not intentional.
I understand. Christians are going to Christian. It's their nature. It's your nature. You can't help it.
Actually,
I'm a pastor.
Actually, we still have 2 minutes. Oh,
Okay,
actually, we still have 2 minutes. So time is not actually not up. Yeah, so you can continue.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've got so much more. Let me just go through my list here.
Sure.
Let me see. Let me save the good answer. Good question here. Tell me the pain that's caused by racism, is it a spiritual event, or is it a biological, neurological one?
Sorry, can I just get the first part of what you asked?
The pain caused by racism, is it a spiritual event? Is it a spiritual event or a biological event?
So there's this perception that we are anti-biology. We're not anti-biology in a sense that, things that are true biologically, for an example, DNA, we affirm that, we are similar in that way. So it can be both because ultimately it's God who created us.
It's one or the other. It's one or the other. Is it spiritual or biological or both?
So we don't ground it. So for an example, we don't ground it in biology. but everything that's true is true because of God. In other words, God has revealed himself through nature, but he's also revealed himself through the Bible. But ultimately, our truest, revelation comes from the Bible.
So
But the fact that we're 99% similar, that's also a God truth, right? It's not exclusive to
the pain,
naturalists.
the pain is a spiritual event then.
I think the interpretation of pain, so for an example, if you're a product of a random process, an unguided process, so you can't make sense of pain. But from a biblical perspective, we can make sense of pain, we can make sense of suffering.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
there's meaning behind it.
I understand, but I'm not asking about the etymology. I'm asking about the cause, right? Is pain caused, the pain caused by racism, is that pain felt spiritually or biologically?
I think it's God is grieved by it from a spiritual perspective, but also biologically, we feel the pain. It's real.
Right. So if we can measure it on a biological level, why do we need a spiritual reason to stop doing it?
So I think for me, if you look from a Christian perspective, you look at things like pain and suffering. I think you cannot make any sense of it without the grounding in God. What is pain? Is it just something that we feel, or is it something that can be compared to something? And so we believe that pain or suffering is the opposite, of the goodness of God. And so you cannot actually know what pain is if you don't compare it to something. And so we do need God to make sense of it. I mean, how do we know it's pain?
Yeah, you should ask the Catholics. There's definitely some people who believe that suffering is a gift from God.
All right, now we've just finished.
I don't want to make it a debate about suffering, but I hear what you're saying.
All right, yeah, thanks, guys. I think we've developed the conversation well so far, and now we want to get into the extended conversation where I guess it's less of a cross-examination and more of a discussion, and we can bring in more of African traditional religion. And I know it's a bit difficult because there's no representative of that position here. But the reason I wanted to be brought up, the reason I actually wanted to be brought up is because there is that aspect of naturalism being anti-African traditional religion, and then there's also the aspect of Christianity being anti. So like, even as we disagree with that position, I would like you, as you are continuing the discussion for the next 15 minutes, and I will not interrupt for 15 minutes, also discuss it as you discuss how Christianity and naturalism help or don't help with racism. And then also there's the aspect of there are people who don't think racism is a problem. They actually think it's good for them. So if you can also... Okay, so I will not speak for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you, Charles. Let me throw the first one your way, right? So we have to ask ourselves now, here sitting in 2026, February the 15th, we have to ask ourselves the morality of Bronze Age desert nomads, right? Or the morality of 17th century settlers. Does that carry more weight than the collective knowledge that we have acquired? And especially during the last century, we have seen an exponential growth in our knowledge as a species due to the advancements of modern biology, of psychology, of science. And, it doesn't make sense. We've learned more about the human brain and social behavior in the last 50 years than any of those authors of the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, all of these books of mysticism could have dreamed in a lifetime. So why are we still clinging to these ancient texts as the final word on equality, when within those texts there are clear, black and white examples of inequality, misogyny, slavery, exploitation of women, the whole thing. And, we're trying to take that morality as we are navigating a modern city with a map that's coming from a satellite in the sky, and we're trying to, it doesn't make sense to me. And that's one of the big problems. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop in a second. I really want to hear your take on this, because the problem that I have with organized religion is that it does not change. It does not evolve, because if it evolves, it has to admit that there was something that it got wrong from the start. What is your take on this? Do you think that religion should change to catch up to the times?
I don't even know what you mean by that, but I mean, everything that I've directed towards you in terms of where we ground human value has always come from the Bible, right? And so I'm not quite sure what you mean in terms of catching up. And I think, again, I'm coming back to the idea that we have.
I have to then clarify what I mean if you're not getting it. So let's take a real example. Will you be my slave?
No, I won't be a slave.
I'll treat you just like the Bible says.
No, I won't be a slave, because the Bible says we're both made in the image of God. And that before God, there's neither slave nor free, right? Because if you want to read the Bible selectively, I think it's very interesting that the people who try to justify. Let me finish. You asked the question. You asked the question. Let me finish. So the people who try to justify slavery, right, using the Bible, it's very interesting that they only took a selective reading of the Bible that took out 70% of the Bible. And it's very interesting also that people who were slave abolitionists, people like William Wilberforce, even Frederick Douglass, a black person in America, said he hates the slave beating version of Christianity, of the slave owner. It's against the Christianity of Christ, right? And so, like I said to you earlier, I think we're going around in circles. Anybody can go to biological information and come out with a wrong conclusion based on their starting point. If you're racist and you read biology, you're going to come out with racist conclusion. You come to the Bible and read it selectively, you're going to come out with those conclusions. But what I want to hear from you, is the points that I put forward at the beginning in my opening statement, that are those not sufficient to ground our human equality? I guess that's where the debate should be. But if you're going to take the side of the slave owners and read the Bible selectively in order to advance an agenda, then of course you're going to come out with that example, and people in the comments.
You don't see that as a problem. You see that as a feature. You see that as a feature.
But I already pointed to
it's a bug. Dean, it's a bug. It's not a feature. It's a bug. It's a problem.
Dean, I already showed you that there's a problem on your side as well. Right? People can interpret things.
I'm not claiming
interpret things differently.
I am not claiming that I'm not claiming that my evolving worldview that is open and subject to change is the word of the unalterable word of the creator of the universe. I will be the first person to admit that we get things wrong and we change as we learn. I will be the first person to admit that. Can Christianity say the same thing? Can they say, yeah, sorry guys, that slavery thing, oops, sorry, all the black people, sorry, we got it wrong, all the women, the way that we treated the women until they started fighting back, like, oops, sorry, obey your master.
I think you're straw-manning. I think you're straw-manning.
I am obviously creating a caricature of your belief. I'm not.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that that's the case. I mean, nations historically that have been Christians have played a significant part in the development of science and all these things, even the evolution of slavery. You know what I mean? So some people got it wrong, but why don't you mention the ANC, right? The founders of the ANC who began to critique apartheid were doing it purely from a Christian perspective.
And the majority
evolution movement in America was purely a Christian movement.
Yeah.
Pan-Africanism was purely a Christian movement.
Communists.
So even history, right? If you want to take history selectively, you'll have the conclusions you want. If you want to take the Bible selectively, you will arrive at all the conclusions that you want to come to. But
exactly. So what is the solution? So if we can take either worldview and end up with a wrong conclusion, what is your solution?
I mean, it's like you asking me if somebody took a hammer and beat somebody up with a hammer, and then another person took a hammer and built a house. Do we blame the hammer or do we blame the person who used the hammer? I'm saying come back to the principles. Come back to the essence, what I put forward to you. Misrepresentation, you agreed with me. Humans are terrible people.
You know, it's now we have the gospel according to Lwandiso Dlokweni, you know.
What do you mean? I quoted verses from the Bible.
But there are Christians. There are Christians that read the same Bible that you do that believe differently to you. How do you know?
It's because you've never engaged the Christian who's thinking about these topics, right? So
no true Scotsman.
The average Christian doesn't even know some of the verses you're talking about, and this is precisely because they don't draw their theology from there, right? These are fringe verses, even in the Bible that you're referring to, and most of them.
It sounds like a lot of
Dean, most of them were particularly for the state of Israel. They mostly related to Israel, right? And we had this discussion initially about why don't Christians just take every verse in the Old Testament? You know, God said to Noah, build a boat. Why shouldn't I build a boat now? You know, I mean, so we can't just apply whatever lens we want to the Bible. I mean, what hermeneutical principle are you using when you approach the Bible? You know, do you take verses that are maybe unclear and you use them to interpret the whole thing, or do you take the clear parts and interpret that which is not clear?
You can do either. You can do either or. You know, it's like a pick your adventure book. You know, like it's those. You remember as a child we got those pick your adventure books.
Not necessarily.
You read a story, and at the end of the story it says, if this happens, turn to page 19. If that happens, turn to page 40. If that happens, turn to page 70. And you can find your own adventure through the book as you see fit. It is called, you know what?
But that's not a hermeneutical principle.
Let me finish.
That's not a hermeneutical principle.
Allow me.
The hermeneutical principle is it must be something that is consistent from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and you must have the clear parts interpreting the unclear parts. Now, what I said to you, you want to take the unclear parts, the fringe parts, and then conclude that this is what it is. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, it's called cafeteria.
Which is unfair.
It's called cafeteria Christianity. You go to, it's like you're going to a cafeteria and you say, today I'm going to have some love thy neighbor, do good unto others. And
that's consistent.
No. I don't have the stomach.
It's a consistent message in the Bible. Jesus repeated that statement in the New Testament coming from the Bible.
Allow me. Slavery.
Find me one statement repeated by Christ in the statements that you mentioned.
Executing sons, genocide, executing non-virgins, allowing grape, God causing grape, God causing.
But why do you take those verses? I mean, similar to what the slave owners went to the fringe verses.
Polygamy,
why take those verses?
Divorce only for men, adultery test for women only.
But why do you take fringe verses? And I mean, I gave you a classic example. I said, interpret for me the curse of Ham, and you wouldn't go there, right? Because these things, you just take them from surface level. You probably haven't even read the curse of Ham. And that's why I asked you, can you articulate to me what happened and is it a basis? And that shows that most of these things that people put forward, they haven't actually given themselves a chance to read them.
You are basically saying, like, Dean, because you don't want to eat the whole pie full of shit, you don't know what the pie is like. You must eat the whole pie. You must eat the whole pie of shit before you can understand that shit is bad.
I didn't say that, but remember, we're talking about a worldview. We're not talking about isolated verses. I need to bring you back to the question of the debate.
I've got the whole worldview here broken up. in an Excel spreadsheet.
But what we're debating is not isolated verses in the Bible. We're saying the whole thing put together.
Failed
Can
prophecy,
it critique?
not one prophecy fulfilled, and you want to tell me this is the basis to solve?
But are we having a debate about prophecy? Do you not want to debate?
We're having a debate about the foundation.
Is that what you want to debate?
The foundation is built on lies.
Dean, I understand that you're excited and you want to debate every topic. I would debate you on all these topics that you're bringing up. But what we're debating here is, can Christianity or the Christian worldview critique racism, and can atheism or naturalism or just simply biology? And that's, you need to come back there. And I know you want to have all these other, because I think it's more meaningful for people who are listening to us.
I've laid out, I've already laid out.
To focus more the discussion on that.
I've told you the principles, I've told you, I've listed our shared humanity. There's a worldview called secular humanism. Completely void of religion.
But that's a jump, you know? But that's a jump, because if you, can I interject there, Dean?
I was going to say a sentence, but you do talk a lot.
Sorry, okay, let me let you finish. Sorry, I'm also getting excited. It's fine, finish.
Yeah. No, I mean, what is naturalism, in terms of a worldview, only says that there is only the natural. There's only the natural. That is all that we have the warrant to believe and to affirm. Right? That is naturalism in a nutshell. There's no supernatural dimension. There is, there's no supernatural dimension within naturalism. So what I am saying is, there are worldviews that are compatible with naturalism that we adopt, you know, because you can't build a worldview around a topic of naturalism. You can't build a worldview around the topic of atheism, you know, because atheism is simply the negation of the God belief. You know, it's not a worldview. It's just saying not that. You know, so most atheists that I know, most humanists adopt a worldview called secular humanism, where we believe in the value, the intrinsic value of human beings, just for the sake of them having value. We don't attribute any unnecessary baggage or spiritual dimension to this. You know, we understand that the natural world is all that there is. It's all that we have evidence of. We don't have evidence of any supernatural dimension. All we have is a glorified book club. We have a glorified book club and people who like history club too much.
Sure. Look, Dean, there's a couple of things, you know, and I quoted a couple of atheist guys like Nietzsche, you know, Bertrand Russell. He was definitely a naturalist, if I could use that word. But he still acknowledged, you know, that what the world needed was compassion. And he even said that they need Christian love. So he didn't affirm faith, but he at least recognized that without the spiritual grounding of Christianity, really there's no need for us to look upon any human being and, you know, and sort of attribute any kind of value to them. You know, it's almost as if you look at the argument you're using in terms of similarity. I mean, lions see themselves as similar, but a lion, male lion, you know, sees himself much more superior than others. You know, from a naturalistic perspective, is that lion sinning? I guess you don't believe in sin, but, you know, how would you say that that's wrong, you know? And is there a difference between a human and a lion?
Of course, there's a difference between a human and a lion, and you must go to the.
But they're both products of the same random process.
Yeah, but you must go and see the. Have you seen the homosexual lions in Kenya? You want to talk about the nature of animals? You know, like there's some nature on display for you there. You know, like all natural.
Well, I don't draw my theology, you know, in terms of. I don't draw my theology, but you get it from there. You get it from there, right? So is it wrong for another lion to kill other species or animals? Would that be wrong, even though they're all animals? Would that be wrong?
Let's get back to Charles. He's dying too. He's dying. We can't hear you, Charles.
Please save him.
I will love to have this topic where I would love to have this discussion with you. We can have a good discussion about this. We can have a good discussion about this.
No, it's good. It's good, bro.
Charles, you don't have audio. You're mute. You're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
I think he's actually.
Yeah, can one of the producers try to unmute him or just prompt him to unmute? I don't think he's hearing us. Let's see what Charles had in store for us next while he is. So after the 15 minutes of uninterrupted discussions, we are going to go to Q&A. So that would be from Charles. Let me just see. Oh, this chat is lit, my friend.
I know. I can see. I can see.
And we have another atheist here that wants to debate you very badly. So you're gonna go here. Let's read some of these chats while we wait for Charles to get his audio set up here. Ooh, let me scroll all the way to the top. Let's see what we can get here. Yeah, the Detroit Atheist Queen. She's in the house. The Damn Show is in the house. We have got, let me just see. We've got Bree Badger, AP Personal. Let me just see. Charles, are you audible, Charles? I don't know.
Maybe the other lady could assist us.
Yeah, Bree, are you available to jump in? Amazing. So we are at yeah, we are at stage. We've just concluded stage 3. We're on to stage 4. So it's audience Q&A. I don't know if you want to just run through the.
I've got
questions.
a couple here. So theoretically asked, where in the Bible does it say slavery is wrong? It only says he mustn't die within 3 days after beating him.
I think that's for you. That's for
Yes.
you. That's for you.
Yeah, look, I'm sure most of these questions are going to come to me. But like I said, the people who use the Bible to justify slavery had to censor 70% of the Bible. And I think that speaks volumes in and of itself, because if you look at the book of Exodus, right, it's the whole book of God delivering people from slavery. You come to the New Testament, and people like to cherry pick certain verses, but if you look even in the book of Timothy, it tells us that slave owners will not inherit the kingdom. It also mentions that there's neither slave or free, male or female, Jew or Gentile before the eyes of God. You know, we're equal. Do unto others as you'd have them do to you. I mean, 70% of the verses in the Bible, you would have to isolate to come out with the conclusion of slavery coming from the Bible. But I think the principles that are there from creation, from the incarnation, the death of Jesus on the cross, and even ultimately, when you look at the book of Revelation, you see that all people from all races, ethnicities will come together and worship one God. So we see a consistent message there.
You are like a bar of soap, you know, like a Lux or a Lifebuoy. You cannot grab it because it's every time you touch it, you take it to grab it, and it just jumps. You are there. Your tongue is like soap, my friend. Your tongue is like soap.
It wasn't actually an answer to the question, but
Well,
the question
I think
was,
you're
where in the
supposed to.
Bible
I
does
think
it
you're
say
supposed to
slavery is
moderate.
wrong?
I think you're supposed
So-
to moderate. I don't think you should be giving commentary.
No, I don't. What I'm saying is, the
Well, as a
question is,
point
where
of
in the Bible does it
moderation,
say
as a-
slavery is wrong? So
As a point of
Well, it's
moderation,
two atheists versus the Christian. That's what's happening here.
yeah, but you want to, Jesus told you you're going to be a victim and you're going to be persecuted. So that's just another prophecy that's fulfilled.
I was just going to move on, but I didn't have an actual
No,
answer. to the
but
question,
Bree has a
so-
point. Bree has a point on a point of moderation. You did not answer the question.
Yeah.
No, I don't think she should be making commentary, but I think you can respond. I think you're allowed to make a comment after me, but
Yep.
I'm not sure she's supposed to say
She's
anything.
a moderator. It's a
Yeah,
point
but
of
she can't make
moderation.
she can't make a comment
Let's move
because
on.
obviously she's got her own biases, obviously.
Yeah, I knew that. So let's move on. We're not going to.
I'd like
Alright.
to debate her as well, though. If she wants.
It's not a hill that anybody wants to die on. So let's just.
All
move
right.
on.
I did want to, well, this was actually a comment from me, actually a question, because I wasn't planning on jumping in as moderator. But I wanted to know if you could please define grounding and why it's necessary.
Well, I think something that's grounded must be based on something that doesn't change. And when we're saying morality or human value is grounded, it's grounded initially, I would say, in the nature and character of God. So, I mean, if you were to understand Christian theology, we say God is in his character, his essence, and then God acts out of that. So he commands us to love our neighbors based on his character. He commands us to do to others as we would have them do to us. So that's grounded in his nature. And so he commands his will towards us and creates us in his image based on who he is. So that's the grounding. That's one thing that doesn't shift. It's not a random evolutionary process that maybe at some point might decide that killing another race or undermining another race for the sake of survival of the fittest, which is what we see in the animal kingdom. That's never going to happen because it's grounded on something that does not change. So that's what we mean by grounding.
I mean, I have to humble myself here in your superior knowledge of Scripture and ask you to please tell me why God would command the genocide of entire races of people.
Okay, so number one, and if you allow me just to make 2 points.
You talk a lot. I'm used to it.
I don't mean to, but I mean, it's a complicated passage, so I don't treat it like go to that passage and it's easy. But what I would say is, number one, we see consistently that even Israel, when they misbehave or they sin, God still commands the other nation to invade them. I mean, when they worship the golden calf, God commanded Moses to administer judgment to them, right? So about 3,000 of them die. So again, this is not something that is maybe where God favors one race over another. And that's why if you look at the book of Genesis 15, you'll see that God talks about the sin of those people. And one of the things that they were doing was children sacrifice. And God said he was going to judge them already, Genesis chapter 15. And so when God does that, he does that to demonstrate his justice, that sin doesn't go unpunished, right? Like the sin of racism will not go unpunished with the God of the Bible.
It sounds a lot like...
So in a nutshell, well, let me finish.
Finish already. I also want...
Let me finish. Number two, because God is the giver of life, right? And he's the source of all life. Job recognizes that he gives and he takes away. And so God, through his sovereignty, the same way that in South Africa, you might have the government that says murdering people is wrong. But if a police sees that lives are in danger, he would shoot to kill a criminal to save other lives. So for something greater, God is able to do some of these things. So that would be my answer to that
So-
question.
Might makes right.
Say again?
So I think
Might
we get to another
makes
question.
right.
Well,
So
I mean,
that-
is it wrong
that's-
for
that's
is it
essentially-
wrong
essentially
for
what
the
you-
We could
government?
get to another question.
Is it wrong for the government to
I think I'm audible
shoot
now, right?
somebody?
Yeah,
Is it
we
wrong
do.
for the government to shoot somebody to save lives? Would you say that?
No,
was I
no,
audible?
not in the defense of not in the defense of somebody's somebody's freedom or whatever, But I would just I would,
But it is for judgment. It's not for fun, though.
I hear you, but you essentially articulated what we God made everybody. I made you, I can destroy you. Like that is the
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It just means that God has sovereign control over life on earth. So nobody says, God, you're so terrible for
exactly.
giving me. Nobody says, God, you're terrible for giving me life. But as soon as God takes life away, you can't do that.
Exactly. So is that the same as saying might makes right?
Not necessarily. I don't think that that's what it means. But if there is a God, right, you would agree with me that he would have the authority to do that.
That's a very, very big if.
I'm just help me hypothetically there.
Yeah. So
If
I'm
there
saying
is a
along
God.
with you. I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes, but it's a very big
Yeah,
if.
okay.
So if God is the author of the universe, then yes,
Yeah.
might makes
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, he will one day decide to say the world has come to an end, right? So can
And I
human
don't-
beings turn around and
you
say
know-
God
you know-
can't do that?
Do you know where that saying "might makes right" comes from?
No, I'm not actually familiar with it.
It comes from Nazi Germany.
Okay. But again, we already said that morality from a Christian perspective is not based on what human beings decide, right? It's grounded in something that doesn't change.
I
The
hear
image
you.
of God. Yeah. But thank you for sharing that with me.
All right. I'm audible now?
Yes, you are. We can hear you fine.
Yeah, very sorry, guys. I do not
No,
know
it's
what has
fine.
been happening.
Did you pray or did you sacrifice a goat? What did you do? Did you sacrifice a goat to get the pleasing smell of the burning flesh to the Lord? Why can we hear you? What happened?
I think God has sovereignly done his work, it seems. But let's get to this question. The question seemed to be for Lwandiso. So unfortunately, there are no questions for White Jesus out of Africa. But there's a question here that says, all are baseless, arbitrary assertions, which can be said to be unchanging. So how do you justify a particular hierarchy of races? I'm not sure if you meant to say that there's a hierarchy, but they're asking whether you can justify a hierarchy of races.
So the issue of hierarchy of races, I don't quite think is a Christian problem. Since the people who developed hierarchy of races, most of them have been atheists and who have concluded, one way or the other, that based on civilization, that some races are much more civilized than others. Some came to the conclusion that black people are closer to monkeys, and so therefore there's that hierarchy. It's not necessarily a Christian problem. But when he says arbitrary assertions, I grounded my basis for human value in God. It's not arbitrary. It's not somewhere in the sky. It's not a random process or an accident. It's grounded in the character of God. God is, and then he acts, he commands us, he makes us, he creates us in his image. So ultimately, human value without God, is nothing but a human invention. It's a feeling. One race could look at another race and think, in order for us to survive, like in South Africa, we are a minority group and then we need to oppress the other groups, right? It all comes down subjectively to what one race thinks. But from a
Preached
Christian
from the pulpit.
perspective,
Preached from
it's
the
not
pulpit.
arbitrary. It's not arbitrary from a Christian perspective. It's
No, it came from
grounded
the pulpit.
in
It
an
wasn't
eternal
arbitrary.
reality that does not change.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Thanks.
I'm sorry. I have to. I claim the right to response. Yeah, because that was a lengthy soliloquy of fallacious reasoning that was deployed in defense of the indefensible. Racism was preached from the pulpit in this country. So you cannot with one side of your mouth say, "Oh, Jesus is the answer to racism," and then on the other side of your mouth you can condemn, Christianity, because it was preached from the pulpit. You have to be intellectually honest and address and say, this was a faulty or a flawed version of Christianity for these reasons. You can't just have the cake. You want to have the cake and eat everything of it. It doesn't work like that. I think personally, anything that a Christian says. Wait, let me finish my sentence, and then I'll give you all the time that you need to speak. I also like to speak. Can you not tell? I also like to voice my opinions. Why are you guys cutting me short as soon as I get going? I also want to speak here. So what I'm saying is, like, you're gonna make me forget what I wanted to say now. What was I saying? Oh yeah.
Okay, no, I'll tell you what you were saying.
You can't anything that a Christian says in 2026 has to be preceded by mandate by a lengthy list of apologies for all the shit that they fucked up in this world up to now, before they can make any claim to morality. I say it, I'll say it now, I'll say it with my dying.
Let's get to the next question, which is the last one, and then we get to actually final closing statements. And the last question is, and let's make this quick so that we can just get straight to the final comments. So the comment was,
I'll be quick, Charles. I don't know if it. He's the one that you need to tell to be quick.
All right. So if might makes right and morality is based on the system that is subjective on God's desires, does that mean there is no foundation? So I think that is for you, Alwandiso, but just make it a quick comment, like a 30-second comment, and then why Jesus out of Africa can make it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what the question is trying to ask is,
I get it.
Yeah, if the morality is based on God's desires, it's subjective because it's subject.
No,
God's desires
not necessarily.
change, but God's desires change.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And obviously, God is more complicated than human beings. And that's why I said that God has attributes that he communicates with us. But then he also has attributes that he doesn't communicate with us. For an example, his sovereignty, right? The fact that he is omnipresent, right? He doesn't communicate that to us. And that's why when we made in his image, we have the capacity to reflect God's communicable attributes. Let me finish. So God has given us, let me finish. God has given us the ability to love, reflect his love, to be good, reflect his goodness, right? To be social and to do all these things. But just like in any government, and I made this example, and I don't know why people keep bringing this up. I made an example of a government. If a government says the speed limit in South Africa and a highway is 120, can a traffic police go more than 120 to catch a criminal? And God can do that, right? So God can, even though he's commanded us to do all these things and to live out his communicable attributes in his sovereignty, in order to correct things based on his foreknowledge, he has the freedom to do that. Nobody stands at the union buildings and says, no, you can't go more than 120 to shoot criminals. You can't shoot criminals to kill them because you said we shall not shoot people or kill each other. And so it's not necessarily, that might makes right, but we need to understand God from what Christianity is saying, not from Nazi Germany, but understand it as it is put forward in the Bible.
All right. If White Jesus out of Africa, if you can make a literal 15-second response, and then we get into final statements because time is.
Charles, I submit humbly to Lwandiso here. He has a superpower. His superpower is with all the apologetics. He melts my brain. After a while, I don't hear people. I don't hear what he's saying anymore. It's just like I'm trying, Charles, but I have nothing to say because my brain's melted. I have nothing to add. Sorry.
So I guess this is time for final conclusions, and I guess we could start with Lwandiso. 5 minutes. So just give a summary of what you think Christianity, African traditional religion, and naturalism say on the topic, and then also you can give the best argument that White Jesus out of Africa has given that you need to consider. 5 minutes.
All right, so thank you so much to
I hope I was
you,
clear.
Wandalo. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yes, you.
Okay. So thank you so much to you, Wandalo, for organizing the debate, and to Dean for coming out, and for those who are watching us. So today, I think more than anything, what I heard coming out from Dean is, number one, that there have been Christians in South Africa who put forward ideas of racism, trying to justify it from the Bible. But I think a closer look at those passages, even, we can conclude that there was actually no biblical basis that could be drawn, but rather people came up with racist ideas and then took the Bible to try and validate them. And this is no different from atheists who have gone and looked at biology, who have looked at science, and also come out with racist conclusions. I think if our debate is going to be around the distortions, if it's going to be about who abused what, I think the discussion, if we keep it in the Bible, and I think the consistent message from the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, God creates from one man, creates the whole human race. And so we are equal in God's eyes because he created us and endows us with value by creating us in his image consistently. Even when we look at Abraham, we see that God's intention, even when he chooses Israel, the end goal is to bless all nations. And we see even with Christ that he dies for all people groups. He doesn't say, I'm here for the white person, or I'm even here for the Jews, by the way. And even if we look at the book of Revelation, we also see that ultimately the end product, the end goal is that people from every tribe, tongue, nation will stand together and be redeemed and begin to worship God. But also it's important that we state that from a biblical perspective, the God of the Bible also doesn't blink at sin, so he won't blink at racism. And that's one of the issues with naturalism, is that Hitler and Mother Teresa are all both going to end up in the same place. So why should it matter how they behave? How should it matter how they treat other people? Because ultimately they're just going to the dust. What about those people who abused people and got away with it? From the God of the Bible, there's no sin that will be left unpunished. And ultimately, I think for me, instead of us trying to get God to justify himself before us, why did you do that? Why did you do this? I think it's important that we understand that we need to be justified before God. What is our standing? How do we treat our neighbors, right? Because ultimately, we'd love to say racism's over there. But the Bible says we've all fall short. And I think Christianity also says the problem is not somewhere in the sky. It's not Hitler, right? It begins with the human heart, the fallenness of humanity. So Christianity gives you a comprehensive understanding, not just of human value, but even of morality. It can critique this thing to its core, right? That all of us do have a tendency towards selfishness and so on. But it's also helpful, again, to understand that there's no conflict between Christianity and science. Most of the people who have developed the scientific method, people like Newton and so on, have all come from a Christian perspective. Even people who have critiqued slavery, majority of them. I mean, we like to point to the one side, but what about Pan-Africanism, right? What about the foundation of the oldest liberation movement in South Africa, the ANC? The ANC, when it began to come together, they would meet in the church. After they've had their services, they'll meet and discuss how are they going to liberate their people. And all of them came from a Christian persuasion. They were reading the same Bible that was read by the nationalists and came to completely different conclusions. And so the question is, does the Bible stand on the side of those who see liberation in the Bible or on the side of those who see oppression? I think the consistent message is that the Bible promotes a message of equality before God, equality before the Creator, who also holds us accountable. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lwandiso. I guess while Jesus out of Africa, you can start your 5-minute closing statements, and if you have maybe the best argument that you feel came from the other side, you can share it.
What was the best argument that I made, Lwandiso?
I think the 99.
Yes, actually, just also say it.
Can I say it? Hello?
Yeah, go for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think 99% DNA.
Just a quick comment on it, and then.
Yeah, 99% DNA shows us that we are similar. And I think that's a good starting point in discussing these things.
Yeah.
But how we arrived there, obviously, is another thing that I don't want to mention now. But I want to say that was a very good place that you put that forward. And I think all people can benefit from knowing that the differences between us are just 1%.
Less than 1%. It's 1/10.
Less than 1%. That's a good one. No, it's a good
Right.
way to put it.
So let me jump into that, right? And I have to, before I start this, I have to say I have absolutely nothing against Lwandiso. I think he's a great guy. I think if we sit down together, we'll have a nice conversation, drink some tea and eat some biscuits and be very friendly towards one another. But my opponent, this whole debate, has been painting this gorgeous picture of this stained glass, intrinsic value and divine sparks. And it's a nice image, honestly. It's a nice image. But when the wind of history starts blowing here and there, and especially here in South Africa, we know exactly how hard those winds can hit those stained glass windows, and they just shatter. They are asking us to trust some creator for our equality. But I've got to ask, which version? The one they used to crown kings, or the one that's used to justify chaining up the ancestors? That is the thing about a spiritual foundation. It is basically just a mirror. It reflects whatever prejudices the person holding the mirror already has. So people love to say that without God, we are just bags of chemicals, as if being one of the most complex organisms on this planet isn't enough. They're trying to sell you a sky hook to hold up your morals, but just look at your feet for a second. You are standing on nearly 4 billion years of evolutionary success. We don't need an ancient text to tell us to love our children. We are literally the descendants of the people who love their children so fiercely that they survived ice ages and the savannah. We don't need an ancient text to teach us about the value of mutual respect and cooperation with those who are different from us. Our empathy isn't some gift. It is our best survival trait. It is hardwired into our brains by evolution. Suggesting that we'd all turn into monsters without a Sunday sermon isn't just cynical, it's a lie. It's a lie about who we are. Honestly, in this country, We have seen divine truth used as weaponry far too often. We've seen pulpits used to separate the chosen from the cursed. But what has never lied to us? The blood in our veins, the DNA that is running in our veins, the actual pain in our nervous systems. When somebody has beaten under the old regime, their biology didn't care about religion. The adrenaline that surged through them surged the same through everybody. The cortisol that floods your brain was the same for everybody. The software of human suffering is universal. If we base our equality on biology, it is a fact. No politician or priest can twist or take that away from you. My opponent offers a foundation of faith, which, let's be real, it's a noble pursuit, but ultimately it is just another way of saying, I hope this is true. I don't have evidence, but humanism offers you granite. It's there. You can test it. You can work with it. Doesn't depend on anybody's interpretation. I don't need to believe in the invisible to protect the people that I can actually see. I don't need to read a scroll that's 3,000 years old to tell me that the person next to me is my brother. I just have to look at them. I can see a person who feels, who dreams, and who shares 99.9% of my DNA code. We have outgrown these moral placeholders. We don't need a divine parent to stop us from hitting one another. Oh, excuse me, I haven't talked this much in ages. Right, we are adults. To choose this stuff today is to build a house on beach sand. Racism isn't sin, it is a delusion. Racism isn't a lack of grace, it's a scientific error. Let's leave the ghosts in the past and lean into our shared, naturalistic, biological reality right now. We are one because our atoms demand it, not because a book says so. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that. I think we can call it the end. Oh, sorry for that. Let me just get rid of that. Yes.
Thank you so much for organizing this, Charles. It's been a very spirited debate. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
We must do this again.
And maybe before we end, I don't know if we already ended it, but if you want to discuss, maybe say something about your channels, you can say that before we close.
You can go first,
so
Wendy.
Maybe White Jesus Out of Africa. Okay,
I'll go first. So
so
I'm gonna go first, because you're gonna talk a long time. So let me get my promo out, and then you can talk until tomorrow. I don't care. So my name is Dean. I am the administrator of the South African consulates of the Atheist Republic. Thousands of atheists are online. We have a community of people. If you don't believe in God, you can find a community of people just like you. Gone are the days where the church has the monopoly on people's time, on people's resources. We are mobilizing ourselves. We are forming communities. So look for us on YouTube, on Facebook. Whatever city you are watching us from, just search for Atheist Republic and the name of your city, and you will find a community of like-minded people just like you. Also, follow us on YouTube. My mission is to speak to as many African people who have tossed white Jesus, who have tossed Arab Muhammad, all of them to the side, because those are not our culture. It's not our identity. It's not our people. It is an imposition. It's an imposition from colonialists. So yes, I will speak to every single African that I can find who has seen the light of reason, my brothers and sisters. just I implore you, come to the light. Thank you.
All right. And I guess, Lwandiso, you can tell us about your channel and yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, for those of you who live in Cape Town, I will be there on the 6th of June at St. James, Kenilworth, around 4 o'clock. There'll be a discussion there on African spirituality and Christianity. And then if you want to check me out on socials, you can find me on Bisrat for Africa. And that's a YouTube channel where I post weekly videos related to Christianity.
And it's the digit 4, Bisrat with a digit 4. It's not FOR.
Yeah. So Bisrat for Africa. And you can also find my second channel, Bisrat Apologetics. That's where you can find all of them. Thank you so much for watching our discussion. And thank you to Dean and Wandalo as well for their participation.
All right. And also, I'm Charles from African Debates. You can also check me out on socials. There also are the debates down there. And also I'm part of an organization called Apologetics Kenya. You can also look up Apologetics Kenya. There's a lot of work doing. I'm from Kenya. I'm the one who's not from South Africa here. And yeah, let's continue talking about this. These are important issues. And hopefully we won't be seeing people being assassinated for disagreeing, but they can come here, discuss, disagree, and still continue with their lives. Hopefully persuade one another. If they don't, they can continue loving one another. And yeah, so thanks, Skeptic Haven, for this opportunity. And I think that's it from us. I think we are out.